This gripping romantic movie tells the story of two very different people, each finding in the other what they lack in life. At the center of the plot is Edward, a businessman, successful and cold, who leads a tough life immersed in his business. He holds an important position in a large company and is used to the fact that all his desires and goals are always fulfilled. His life is a constant race for success and money, and he is completely lacking emotions and real human relationships. On one of the usual evenings, returning home from a very important business event, Edward gets lost in the streets of Los Angeles, stops by a charming street prostitute Vivian with a request to show him the way. She is dressed in a revealing dress and behaves too relaxed, which immediately catches Edward's eye. Vivian is full of vitality, and despite the difficulty she has faced, looks like an apparition from another world. Edward later decides that she might be the perfect girl for one evening, and invites Vivian to go with him. At first it seems unexpected, but she soon agrees. She takes his money and starts to pretend to play her part, but gets lost in a world of upscale living that she is completely unaccustomed to. Edward is a man who runs his life with precision and calculation, but next to Vivian he finds himself in a completely different world, full of games and emotions that he didn't even know he could experience. Deep down inside, he feels alone and distant from people, even though there are souls bobbing around him all the time. Vivian, on the other hand, represents a completely different type of personality. She is full of hope despite her difficult circumstances, and gradually begins to open Edward's eyes to life in ways he could never have contemplated. Initially, their relationship is business and money-based, but as they spend time with each other, the sympathy and spark that begins to emerge becomes apparent. Edward gradually realizes that he is actually falling in love with Vivian, and becomes more and more interested in her life, what's on her mind, and her feelings, but this connection does not avoid conflict, and they face prejudice and judgment from society. One evening becomes the beginning of a tumultuous affair that Theone cannot understand or control, despite the classic differences that separate them. Vivian finds herself in a new situation that opens her up to potential she never dreamed of. She gradually begins to dress and behave differently over the few days they spend together. Vivian begins to transform from a street girl to a woman who looks like a real lady. Edward introduces her to new worlds and, in parallel, they both learn to appreciate what they have. However, the fact that their social statuses are so vastly different slowly begins to take its toll. Throughout their brief romance, there are moments of misunderstanding between them as Edward begins to realize that their relationship cannot last forever. Every time Edward brings up the subject of his life and what his plans are for the future, Vivian becomes more and more agitated. She realizes that their impasse may have as much to do with the inaccessibility of Edward's world as it does with her character. At one point, Edward proposes to Vivian that they spend a week together. They go away for the weekend to a posh hotel, where Vivian tries out her role as a proper lady. She takes her time to become part of this world, in parallel teaching Edward not to forget that life can be easy and filled with joy. But life is filled with surprises when Edward begins to encounter a social circle that is trying to figure out where Vivian is coming from. This need to hide from their gaze becomes increasingly unbearable. Their relationship is tested by the opinions of others and stereotypes. Vivian is greatly affected by everything that is going on around her. Despite the fact that she finds Edward to be a pillar of strength and support, she feels how difficult it will be for them to continue together unless they are both truly ready. Edward, on the other hand, is also finding it difficult to deal with his business partners and friends, who have their own ideas about how he should lead his life and who it makes sense to choose as a partner. Eventually, Vivian realizes that her place is not in Edward's world, and she may have to go back to the streets where she came from. She decides to leave him, unable to fight the prejudice and judgment that haunts them. Vivian's departure leaves Edward in a state of utter confusion, and this becomes not only painful for him, but also opens up new horizons for him at the same time. He begins to realize that in fact he has not only lost a girl, but has also bound his soul to a man who has revealed to him real feelings that he didn't even know he had. Edward immerses himself in his work to distract himself from the pain of the separation, but the more he works, the clearer he realizes that he wants Vivian back. He begins to take steps to repair their relationship, realizing that they are more than just two different people, they are a whole together. Edward finds the most important moment: he must go out of his way to win Vivian back, to bring her back into his life despite the fears and doubts of social conventions. He finds her and realizes that he is ready to fight for this love, for their unique bond that nothing can destroy, not even the most dire circumstances. As time passes, Edward goes in search of Vivian to try to explain to her how important she is to him. He meets her again, and in that moment, it's as if their whole world explodes for both of them. All preconceptions die when they realize that there is a real connection between them that is unfading. They were able to come to the realization that their feelings are stronger than any social norms. Edward gives Vivian a chance at a different life, a new self, and in doing so, this discovery completely changes his perception of love and life in general. Their story suggests that sometimes love can be found in the most unexpected places, and despite all obstacles, true feelings and human connections can overcome any barrier. Vivian and Edward learn to truly love each other, and although life can be difficult, if they stay together, they will be able to overcome any challenges. With these moments, the story ends on a positive note, showing that love, even in the most challenging situations, can always lead us to true happiness.